What's up, guys? We are back with another Bandai Tamashii Nations Gundam Universe review, and we're taking a look at the Gundam from Requiem for Vengeance. This is the Gundam EX. So this is that recent show on Netflix, the sort of CGI show. And while it wasn't, let's say, the greatest Gundam show, I did like the designs for the mobile suits, specifically this one, because it's kind of a menacing, evil-looking Gundam in many ways. And I really liked the fights in that. The battles were really, really cool, despite the show not being all that exciting overall. Now, this does come in standard Gundam Universe style packaging, but it's more of a deluxe figure, which is kind of weird. So you've got him there in the box, you've got him there in the window, you've got some artwork of it on the front, not a whole lot on the spine as usual, and then the back gives you sort of cross-sell for the previous wave of figures that just recently came out as well, along with, you know, some shots showcasing somewhat of how it moves and some of the stuff this guy comes with. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Gundam Universe, Gundam EX, and I'm going to say Gundam way too many times, from Gundam Requiem for Vengeance. This is the newest Gundam that has been shown that's in the line. You know, this is a very recent series, and it's already out in figure form. It's already got models and stuff as well, and I believe it's getting even more than that, too. And it's kind of a weird Gundam Universe figure. It falls into a weird space where it is probably one of the most articulated, but it definitely doesn't seem to be the most accurate. And that could be a victim of the fact that it's not a mobile suit that it has existed for 20 plus years like the bulk of this line. It's new. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it when it comes to Bandai stuff, but there are a few things that kind of stand out. As far as articulation goes, he's overwhelmingly pretty standard, but he also has some differences and does move better than I expected. So the head looks up a little bit, looks down a little bit. It's not a lot, but it does do some. You've got your tilt side to side. We've got rotation. Arms go all the way out at the shoulders. They, of course, swivel. There is a pseudo butterfly joint here. It's not really one because it doesn't actually do anything with the chest itself, but the way these are put together, it allows for some forward and backward movement. You've got a bicep swivel. We've got double jointed elbows that have really good range. This guy has really odd arms in comparison to a lot of other Gundams. He's relatively thin, if that makes any sense. And then you've got pegs for the wrists like usual, so up and down, side to side, rotation, all that good stuff. The torso does have some movement, and this is one of the areas that's usually a problem for this line. This one's okay, definitely falls into the better range of most figures. So he's got some tilt side to side. You do have some twist, and if you really push it, you can get further than that. And then you do have some crunch forward and backward. It's not a lot, but it's better than most. Legs go out about yay far. He does have drop down hips, so that does help. So you can kick them down and then out, and then they kick forward all the way. They kick backwards. You can twist up there also, so you got to twist. Knees are the area that's like the one thing that's always kind of rough on these, is there's just very little range and it's kind of wonky. So you got to watch out for those. The ankles are standard. They're ball pegs that go down into the foot. So he goes upwards a little bit, backwards a little bit. He's got this sort of heel thing back here that stops the foot from going. That's the design. You've got pretty decent rocker, and then you do have twist as well, just since it's just a ball peg. So he moves fairly well. Like, I'm not having any issues getting him into poses or anything like that. A lot of the normal Gundam Universe hang-ups are still kind of here, but they aren't necessarily as much of a hang-up, if that makes any sense, compared to a lot of other figures. Now, visually, I think this figure is pretty solid. He's not the best, and he's certainly not the worst. One of the big hang-ups I have is that ultimately, you know, maybe because this is coming fresh off the heels of the show, maybe they didn't have all the info, you know, things like that. You never know how much information is available when things are being made. There is some stuff here that just isn't here, really. So he doesn't have the shoulder cannon. That's one of the big things. That shoulder cannon is not present. A lot of the markings on the body, which isn't that uncommon for this line, a lot of the markings are just not here. So you'd have them on the it's a high-grade model kit that's out right now. So you'd have them on those, but they aren't present here. And in general, this is yet another figure that, and it's pretty typical for this line, really doesn't have any paint on it. Like, a lot of these colors are actually molded plastic for the most part because, and I've said this before, the Gundam Universe line is very much like a line for people who like model kits but don't really have the time or maybe the patience or the interest to build them. So they kind of feel like kits, and they sort of look like it too, especially when you realize that a lot of this is just molded plastic. There is some paint on him, but it's minor and it's relatively clean. I've got really no issues with it. He is very much his own thing, though. Like, this Gundam doesn't really look like a lot of any others. It's a very different kind of design. You know, it's just not standard. Like at first glance, without the head there, maybe you wouldn't realize that it's a Gundam. The head kind of gives it away. But the rest of the design is almost very non-Gundam. He does have the larger, you know, legs and big old feet. That's a very Gundam thing. But there's one big thing about this figure that I really think is holding me back from thinking it looks a lot better. And it's the proportions. There is something weird about the proportions on this figure. I think partly it's because the head is kind of small, but the head is small on this suit, so maybe that's not necessarily a problem. Honestly, I think the arms are too long, and I think the hands are what's really throwing me off, because these hands, as best I can tell, like is the case for pretty much every figure in this line, they're all shared. And a lot of the other Gundam figures so far, they're a little bit chunkier. This guy has smaller, thinner arms, and I think they appear longer than they should be because he has these big, bulky hands on him. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just kind of seeing something that's not actually there. But he has really long hands that they go down to his knees, which seems a little bit big for me. Otherwise, you know, it's kind of a non-issue. When you get him posed up, it maybe isn't that big of a deal, but when you have him standing normally, like this is a long, lanky arm. Something about that, it just isn't really working for me. Otherwise, though, I mean, I think he looks good. The details are mostly there. It's very much a factory fresh Gundam EX, we'll say, of course. The head does look good beyond what I think is maybe a slight bit of smallness that it has, but it does look really good, and it's kind of intimidating. You know, this thing kind of comes across as like a very evil Gundam almost. He's not necessarily a bad guy, but this show is told from the perspective of the Zeon, so he's not necessarily the good guy, so to speak, in this show. And I think it kind of comes across in this head sculpt in particular, especially in the show and how they kind of, you know, demo what this thing is capable of and how it works. But I think for a figure, overwhelmingly, it looks pretty good, but I don't have, you know, perfect things to say about him. He does have maybe a few reservations here and there, but if you're looking for a Gundam EX figure, this is pretty much your only option. Now, as far as accessories goes, the Gundam EX has a pretty solid spread, and it's definitely got a little bit more than average. It doesn't have everything, though. Like I mentioned, he doesn't come with the shoulder cannon, things like that. There was a bazooka that it uses in the show that it's not necessarily its weapon, but another thing that it could have come with. But overwhelmingly, it has most of everything that you would need. To start with, we do get some extra hands, so it's got the big old fists on it in the box. You get a single right trigger finger hand, and you get a single left gripping hand. This is still kind of a pain point for me because I'm pretty sure that there is no right gripping hand in this line. It's either if you need a gripping hand, you're going to get the trigger finger hand. So I wish at some point we would be able to get both, because he has a gun, he has a shield, he has beam sabers, but I don't want him holding a beam saber with a trigger finger hand. This is one of those like just toy pet peeves that I can't get rid of. He does have some weaponry, of course. You've got this, which I've added on. So this is the beam saber like rack that it has. I really like it, but I also don't really like it, because not only does it, you know, kind of look weird like this, it doesn't actually function the way it's supposed to. So in the show, this thing folds down and for storage, and then it pops up so it can grab one of the beam sabers. And it has a bunch because it has like, you know, low power beam sabers or like high output beam sabers or something. They burn out quick, I think is what it is. And this does not actually fold. It just sticks out of his shoulder like that. And then you've got 3 beam saber hilts, and you've got 2 beam sabers. I mean, that's fine. I don't need 3 beams because he can't hold 3 at the same time. These are a little different though, because they start out kind of like a metallic purple blue, and then it goes to the pink, which I really like. That's just different, kind of nice. I'm happy with that. So you've got 2 beam sabers total. We do have the beam rifle. Has a little bit of paint on it for that sort of scope right there. Fairly unique design compared to some of the stuff we've gotten in this line so far. And then it also includes the shield, which is probably my favorite accessory because this is a pretty unique shield. It's a little bit different. It's very much tailored to the very, I'll say, non-Gundam-y kind of design that this thing has. A little bit of paint on it. Again, not a whole lot, but he holds it well, and it's fairly large also. So I do really like a lot of the stuff he comes with. I'd be more happy if this folded down, and if it also included the shoulder Gatling gun that he's supposed to have. I can live without that, but I'd have been a lot happier if this thing folded down. I do think it looks kind of goofy like that. It doesn't look like something that would actually be sticking up in battle, I suppose. But at the end of the day, maybe not the biggest deal. I understand what we're doing with this line, but he does come with overwhelmingly like all the stuff you really need. Like in other figures, you probably wouldn't have gotten some of this stuff. One of these things might have been on the chopping block. So I am happy that he does come with relatively quite a bit. So yeah, overall, this is a pretty solid figure, but he's not without his faults. The Gundam EX is certainly missing stuff, and that's more the problem with this one, is that it's missing stuff. It's a Gundam that appears in one very small show. He has a very select set of things, and we're still missing some of it. I'm not the biggest fan of how that beam saber rack works because it only goes in one position. I wish the shoulder cannon was there, and then I wish it had some of the markings. The markings I can live without because that's not how this line is usually done across the board. But I feel like he's a little too plain in some instances. And then, of course, there's my issue with the arms, or maybe more specifically the hands. He almost looks like he has like boxing gloves on or something. They're really big and kind of goofy and oversized looking to me. Otherwise, though, I do think it looks pretty solid. It does move well compared to a lot of other figures in the line, especially compared to some of the more recent figures. This one does have some pretty solid range. And then what accessories he does comes with are all pretty good. So that's going to do it for this look at the Gundam Universe Gundam EX. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.